Welcome back to the Daily Dope Show. And today we're going to have a little introspective look at what's going on in Oklahoma right now, because it is a shit show. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, holy crap. This is going to be a hard one to unpack, but I think we're just going to have to go through it story by story and see exactly what went down over the last 3 or 4 days. So y'all might remember, and I did a video about it, how Oklahoma, I did a video about how they passed 788 in landslide fashion, as I predicted. And then, and if you want to mischaracterize that as anything but a landslide, go ahead. But all right, if we had opposing armies and my army had over 100,000 more people in it than your army, I would say that we have a pretty good chance of beating you. There's not much of a chance at all that you're going to win without some kind of superpowers or some shit. Anyway, so then all of a sudden, instead of having a mandate and being able to do the things in the law that basically they were supposed to do, like set up a board where they can hammer out the rules and get sales up and running within the first 30 days after passage. That's not how things work in Oklahoma. How that works is the government comes in and they do some crazy shit, and then it causes you to have to do a bunch of delays and lawsuits and all this other stuff because they broke the Constitution and the law and all this other crap. It's been going on since this thing started, man. I mean, I could rewind even farther back to when Scott Pruitt changed the name of the description of the what the ballot initiative was about in the first place. That caused a delay, made it so it couldn't get on the ballot in 2016. Took it to the Supreme Court. The people that, the pushers of 788 won. They keep winning. And Mary Fallon and her gaggle of corrupt shitbaggers are mad as hell about that. They just don't know what to do with themselves. Well, we got a few updates, guys, and it's a roller coaster ride. So when you see this headline, you're like, whoa, there's a 180. Governor Mary Fallon urges board to rescind last-minute changes to the medical marijuana emergency rules. What is this about? We're going to get back to this, but let's watch the video that they got here for this one.
We've come together. We've come together as Green the Vote, Oklahomans for Health, Oklahoma Cannabis Trade Association, and all the citizens of Oklahoma to try to bring some reasonable regulations back into play here and address the egregious over-regulations that the health department has tried to put into place behind closed doors.
Prior to undertaking this litigation, Oklahomans for Cannabis and Green the Vote tried to work with the Oklahoma Department of Health to pass sensible regulations to implement 788, with the primary focus being get patients the medicines that they so desperately need. We had believed that the Oklahoma Department of Health was going to listen and go along with the sort of mediated ideas and regulations that would be put into place. Unfortunately, all of those have been quashed by what they actually did. That one of the things that we're doing with this lawsuit is to try to encourage any other citizen or group that wants to bring an action related to these matters to join in what we're trying to do. The more the merrier as far as we're concerned. What we don't want to have happen is we don't want 50 different lawsuits or 100 different lawsuits across the state of Oklahoma all fighted until, I don't know, about 9 o'clock yesterday morning is when I sat down and started writing this thing. So, no, we had no plans to litigate this matter. We hoped that they would institute actions and regulations that made sense. They forced this. They left us with no choice.
So, what happened, guys? What happened? What exactly happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. This happened. I mean, a lot of shit happened, really, but this is where it started. So just to break this down real quick, this lady, Julie Easel, was, and she's like one of the top lawyers for Oklahoma Health Department. Well, she apparently was trying to be coerced or bribed or whatever into... someone was trying to offer her some kind of a monetary reward, as in like a job or something, that she would get paid lots of money for if she pushed these emergency rules, these 2 rules that everybody hated, the no selling smokable products, A, and B, the pharmacist sitting in at the dispensaries. Now, when I first heard this pharmacist sitting at the dispensaries thing, and you might have watched the video I made about it, or you might not have. I don't know if you stumbled in here and you didn't see that video or whatever. But I thought something sounded a little off there. Like, why would a pharmacist have to sit in at a medical marijuana dispensary? Pharmacists don't know anything about medical marijuana. They don't want to learn about medical marijuana. They don't like people that are involved with the medical marijuana for the most part, in my experience. They work for big pharma. Medical marijuana is like threatening to put them out of business, literally, quite literally. And if you look at the numbers and the polls and the studies about the opioids and people moving away from their prescription or quitting opioids altogether, you can see why they're freaking out. One thing they're not doing is they don't have anything to do with medical marijuana. I thought that was really weird. It almost sounded like just some kind of giveaway to big pharma in a weird fashion, because now you have these pharmacists that literally have to go sit around at a medical marijuana dispensaries to do what? I don't know. No one wants a job where all you do is go there and sit. So, well, you're about to find out exactly where that came into play. So let's get into this story here by Nolan Clay and Dale Denmount, and this is from News OK. And these are all local. I pulled these off from local sources in Oklahoma. That first little bit. We'll get back to these other articles, trust me. Let's just start here. So the former top lawyer at Oklahoma Health Department was accused Tuesday in a criminal charge of sending threatening emails to herself in an attention-seeking ploy. Julie Easel, 37, of Edmond, resigned as a general counsel Friday shortly after confessing, according to an investigator's affidavit. Quote, "I am sorry," she wrote in a resignation email to Tom Bates, interim commissioner of the health department. She posed in the emails as a medical marijuana advocate who threatened retribution if the health department imposed restrictive rules on its use. Quote, We would hate to hurt a pretty lady. You will hear us," one email said. Right out of the bat, what? So you posed as a medical marijuana advocate that's writing literally like death threat type, I know where you live, I'm going to do this and that, we wouldn't want to hurt you. It sounds like the mob. Let me just say that I'm pretty sure that a medical marijuana advocate, even if it's some greedy corporate takeover minded, person that has millions of dollars and wants to open up a chain of dispensaries and grow ops in Oklahoma, even if somebody like that's not going to do this, these people that work in the marijuana industry are generally good people that in my experience, even the most button down corporate types, I think even are like some of the coolest people in that realm you're gonna meet. So I don't know, man. Sounds like right away a little bit fishy. Anyway, that's just me. I'm sure regular investigators probably wouldn't see anything weird about that, especially with all the reefer madness. It seems like people that smoke weed have gotten kind of a bad character, even though in practice, most people just think of stoners as some goofy, harmless kids, dudes that, playing video games or something. I don't know what the damn stereotype is anymore. I'm getting old. So anyway, Easel is charged in Oklahoma County District Court with 2 felonies and a misdemeanor. Damn. Her attorney called her a loyal and dedicated public servant who has worked her entire career as a lawyer. Quote, these charges do not reflect who she is as a person, nor do they reflect the type of advocate she has been for the people of the state of Oklahoma, defense attorney Ed Blau said. These allegations will be answered, and additional relevant information will be provided by us at the appropriate time. And that's just what you say today, you know, like who knows if we'll ever hear back from these guys. I wish her the best, but at the same time I don't, because this is some shady shit. And if you remember my other videos about this topic, I did say I want to see some heads roll. I wanted to see somebody go to jail over this, and this is what's going down. This is part of it. I'm sure you're going to go, this is going to snarl some more people, I hope, because this is some straight up corruption. Straight the fuck up. Just keep checking this out. Watch. All right, she confessed after the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation analyzed her cell phone and determined it was used to create a fake email account, Mary Jame, with an M, at protomail.com, according to the affidavit. Proton Mail is an encrypted email service started in 2014. Easel confessed to making the Mary Jame at protonmail.com email account and sending the threats to her government email, an OSBI special agent wrote in the affidavit. Quote, she acted alone and nobody else knew she was composing the emails and sending them to herself, the agent wrote. I mean, so nobody gave her any ideas on this one? I have a hard time believing that. But anyway, the agent wrote that, and quote, she forwarded the threats to commissioned law enforcement officers with the Oklahoma Department of Health and continued to falsify reports even to OSBI agents during the course of the investigation. In a news release Tuesday, the OSBI said, quote, some emails implied physical harm to Easel, while others indicated the sender knew personal things about Easel. She sent the first email titled Marijuana Laws around 2:15 a.m. July 8th, 2 days before the Board of Health met to consider the new rules on medical marijuana, the investigation found. The email stated, quote, they could show up in force to stop it if the government thought they could take rights away and erase the laws, the OSBI agent reported. Using incorrect grammar, the email also stated, quote, we will stop you and your greed. Any way it takes to end your evil and protect what is ours. We will watch you. This is some sinister sounding shit. And let me just emphasize again that I just simply don't think that you're going to find anybody in the medical marijuana world that partakes in this kind of weird shit. I mean, I don't know. I mean, sure, you're going to find bad apples everywhere, and every orchard's got one, but these kind of threatening emails, it's just like a little bit unbelievable. If I was an investigator at this point in time, I would have been like, okay, this is suspicious. I don't know. You don't even got to be talking about people in medical marijuana industry. You could just be talking about anybody in any legit thing that the government has to make rules about, and you're going to see these kind of threats. And I mean, that's almost not even overt anymore. After receiving that email, she then sent a text from her cell phone at 2:24 a.m. July 8th, according to the OSBI. Starting with an expletive, she wrote, text me when you are up. I just got a pretty threatening email about medical marijuana. After sending herself a second threatening email July 8th, she texted another one. Investigators have not disclosed who received her texts. She sent a third fake email July 10th before the State Board of Health met on the medical marijuana rules. It stated, quote, you won't be able to ignore us today. Check yourself, according to the OSBI. She sent a fourth fake email July 10th, shortly after the board met. It contained her home address and a description of vehicles she drove. She sent a fifth email that night that stated, quote, you impose laws like a dictator and represent none of them. That's a little weird, too. She also sent fake emails. Now, keep in mind that this is her writing them, so that one there kind of is weird. You impose laws like a dictator and respect none of them. It kind of almost feels like, you know, some self-reflection and guilt coming through on that last one. I studied a little bit of psychology back in the day, and when I read that one, I'm like, if I was an investigator. Anyway, she also sent fake emails July 11th and 12th. She faces one felony count accusing her of computer crime for creating the fictitious email account. She faces a second felony count accusing her of preparing false evidence. Now that sounds pretty important right there, guys. Keep that in mind at all time. If you ever decide to make a fake email account just to do something shady, you can get charged with a felony for that shit. That's a fact. You heard it here. I heard it before here. I've heard this many times. I've seen it. I've seen the law. It's in Michigan. A computer crime felony is pretty serious shit. Anyway, she faces a second felony count accusing her of preparing false evidence. We all know that if the only people that are allowed to do that are the police. Anyway, she faces a misdemeanor count of falsely reporting a crime. She turned herself in at the Oklahoma County Jail on Tuesday night. And that's all I want to deal with that story. But turns out there's more to it than that. And here's where the corruption comes in. And here's where somebody else is definitely needs to get snarled in this. Well, we'll see that there's definitely somebody that is getting snarled. But this goes deeper than the department, the government. There's somebody outside the government that's definitely pushing these buttons. All right? Like, we talk about this in the community all the time about how, oh, big pharma this, big pharma that. This feels like local people acting on their own to protect their own interests in pharma. I don't really see the hand of big pharma particularly pulling these strings, but I see more a bunch of people that work within the umbrella of pharma in the greater Oklahoma City area and all around Oklahoma in general, probably, that know each other or have some kind of connection to each other, where they're protecting their own interests in a way that's weird. And they have all these people that, I guess, I mean, what other reason would you have to have these pharmacists sit in at the dispensary other than you have a lot of pharmacists and not a lot of jobs for a lot of pharmacists, and you're looking out over the horizon where medical marijuana is now going to decimate pharmacy sales by 15 to 20 or maybe even 25% in some markets? Maybe you're thinking we need to help the pharmacists out. I don't know. Maybe there is some good intentions hidden in here somehow in a weird, like, I don't even understand it kind of way. But I really, for some reason, unless someone points me in the direction, I don't see big pharma or any really major pharma companies, or, you know, I mean, at the very least, the most likely is one of those major distribution companies that work big pharma, because they're like almost the next biggest thing besides the actual manufacturer of the pills. Because they basically handle huge shipments. Nobody else does that. You know, like the manufacturer just loads up literally trucks and they ship them out every day. It's a big thing. Maybe they have some stake in it. It's Oklahoma. Who knows? But whatever the case is, that's just me speculating. That's just me just kind of like wildly speculating that there is something else going on and more people involved. This isn't just between this lady, Julie Easel, and the lady over at the pharmacy people. So we have the State Board of Pharmacy. In fact, we have Chelsea Church, the director of the State Board of Pharmacy, is who is involved directly with this story. And so the pharmacy board head allegedly offered official Julie Easel a job to sway marijuana rules. This is Meg Winter Weingarter. And another news okay. So, the lawyer for the former state official accused of sending threatening messages to herself over medical marijuana regulations said attempted bribes and pressure from heads of other state agencies had taken a toll on her. So she's saying that there's people coming in trying to bribe her, and that's probably with the, you'll see the emails relating to the pharmacist thing. And then the other thing was this job offering by the people over at Pharma. Well, we'll just go ahead and read it. Ed Blau is representing Julie Easel, the former general counsel at Oklahoma State Department of Health. Easel resigned July 13th and was charged Tuesday with 2 felonies and a misdemeanor for allegedly creating false evidence by emailing threatening messages, which were written as if she were being stalked by a medical marijuana advocate to herself. And I hate the fact that she did that, man. It really makes me not like this lady a whole lot. It's just horrible, you know, to do something like that. Such a dishonest practice. I mean, I can't even go into I can't even begin to do a rant on this because it's almost more heartbreaking than it is something that just enrages me. This is the kind of world we live in. This is the kind of government we have to deal with all the time on everything, but you know, they're really showing themselves here on this one. So the case took another strange turn Thursday when text messages published by the journalism website NonDoc appeared to show Chelsea Church, director for the Oklahoma State Board of Pharmacy, offering Easel a job if she wrote a rule requiring medical marijuana dispensaries to hire pharmacists 3 days before the board voted. It wasn't clear from messages if Church meant the offer to offer a quid pro quo, but Blau said Easel took the message seriously. Quote, it's pretty clear that she had the director of another agency offering her what amounted to a bribe, he said, adding the other agency heads, whom he declined to name, also were pressuring Easel at the time. She basically was offered a position that was not in the spotlight that she was in for a lot of money. Church didn't respond to a request for comment. Ultimately, Easel didn't include the pharmacist requirement in the proposed regulations, but the State Board of Health voted to add it as an amendment at their July 10th meeting. So apparently whoever was trying to get to her did get to somebody, obviously. So what the hell? How come we don't get nothing on that? And I mean, I don't mean to denigrate your work over here, Meg Wingirter. I want to know that. That's the detail that's hanging over this story that really needs to get figured out. How did this stupid pharmacy thing that doesn't make any sense to anybody involved, and probably any pharmacists? You go talk to a pharmacist at a pharmacy, and you know, maybe go even talk to an unemployed pharmacist and ask them, you know, would you take a job sitting at a medical marijuana dispensary all day? Maybe if I was dispensing medical marijuana, I don't know. But since I'm not trained to do that, and most of them probably wouldn't even want to get trained. But if they would, that would be cool. But I don't see that happening. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we need to make it happen because they got trained in the wrong field. So anyway, in the messages sent in the evening of July 7th, Church and Easel discussed the pharmacist requirement. About 10 p.m., Church broached the issue, a job. Quote, you get me a pharmacist in dispensary and then come to our offices. That don't even make sense. Is that the actual quote? You get me a pharmacist in dispensary and then come to our office. It's almost, that's a weird way to put it. I know how government jargon sounds a lot, and that does make sense when I hear it, when I say it out loud, but if you look at it, it doesn't. You get me a pharmacist in dispensary and then come to our office. I guarantee you I can do more than you have now. Church texted Easel, and of course text messages are never like proper English or grammar or whatever. And then, of course, she adds an emoji at the end, which is winking and sticking its tongue out. We got to report on the emojis. In a message later the same evening, Easel said she was, quote, wearing out at the health department and was open to talking. Maybe possibly thinking about taking that job, but didn't promise to include the pharmacist requirement in the medical marijuana regulations. Quote, my answer will be what I think we can do legally, job offer or not, she texted Church. So clearly she understood this to be a basic trade. Like, you get me this pharmacist thing in there, I guarantee you we can get you a job, which is more than you have now. It sounds like a better job than you have now. And also, like, you know, when Easel said this bit about how she was wearing out at the health department, that might be in reference to this whole thing where her lawyer said that she was literally, she was basically wearing out because maybe these attempted bribes and pressure from the heads of other agencies has taken a toll on her, quote unquote. So, you know, they're either building a really good case, and I kind of almost believe it in a little bit of a way. Like, some people in government aren't that prone to being corrupted and don't understand what's going on, maybe. Maybe they just intended on being regular run-of-the-mill public servants, especially in a position where you're like the top lawyer at the health department. Of course, if you're anywhere near the health department or pharma, there's going to be shit coming at you from every direction, and you should know that. But if you didn't, you know, you can act kind of like you didn't know what was going on and just be like, oh yeah, man, like these bribes and all this stuff, it was just too much for me. I was wearing out. So, I don't know. This was her response. Church responded, I understand, but I really wish you could push the issue. If anything, it's open to interpretation. As far as a position, I want to talk. You would be a great fit. So that's the whole bribe just summed up in one little, you know, text message. She should have put an emoji on there, like, bingo, here it is. So, anyway, on Wednesday, Attorney General Mike Hunter said the letter to the health department advising the board had overstepped its bounds with the pharmacist rule, one of the several problems he found with the regulations. Timothy Starkey, president of the Board of Health, said the members will meet as soon as possible to discuss the Attorney General's recommendations. 2 more have filed lawsuits challenging the regulations. One argued that 5 members of the Board of Health held secret meetings in violation of the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act to discuss pharmacist requirements and a ban on selling smokable forms of marijuana. Thanks, Meg Wingirder. Sorry, I keep murdering your name. But good job on this, staying on this story. And of course, you got to look into this. The Oklahoma Open Meeting Act, if you violate it, you get a criminal penalty for willful violations, which states that anybody who willfully violates the act is convicted of that violation shall be punished by a fine of up to $500 and or imprisoned in the county jail for up to 1 year. So the people involved in the that made the emergency rules, the people that were sitting in that room, they're the ones that are looking at this. But you can see why it's like, to them, it's like no big deal. This is just a brush off. It's not shit. Is this even a misdemeanor? It don't even say. It just says it's a fine and or imprisonment in the county jail. Up to a year. It's probably like the judge will just dismiss all the charges and maybe give them a little bit of a fine, which, you know, up to $500. Come on. You know, the bribes start at $5,000, right? So anyway, that's why they do the Open Meetings Act violations without batting an eye. And furthermore, we got a little bit more.
A pharmacist must oversee all dispensaries, and they can't sell the smokable form. Well, today the AG says that goes against the will of Oklahoma voters.
We were very excited to see the press release and letter from Attorney General Mike Hunter.
This press release from AG Mike Hunter says he personally did not support State Question 788, but, quote, the people of the state have spoken, and I have a legal duty to honor the decision made by the electorate. In his letter, he lays out several concerns about the health department's medical marijuana rules, ranging from the ban on smokable sales, a pharmacist on site, limiting where businesses can operate, and setting hours of operation.
It is a recommendation. It is not an official Attorney General opinion. Therefore, it does not have the force of law.
Attorney Rachel Doucette filed a lawsuit last week against the health department's new rules.
We will continue to fight until everything is done properly.
She also told us they don't have any plans at this point to drop that lawsuit. We also just learned that the Board of Health will call a special meeting to consider changes as soon as possible.
That is the truth over at KOCO5 and the AP. So basically it's a 13-member working group of legislators, 9 Republicans and 4 Democrats. It's already sounding a little bit on the shady side to me, because I guess it's because of the ridiculous majorities that the Republicans have in Oklahoma, and they run every branch of government all the way down to like dog catcher and baggage handler. So they get 9 and the Democrats get 4, and I'm sure that those 4 Democrats are just every bit as corrupt as the Republicans these days when it comes to this issue. So we'll see how these rules pan out. Hopefully this works out. But anyway, the authors of the medical marijuana state question 788, approved by 57% of voters last month, required the state to have a system for licensing applications for patients and dispensaries up and running within 30 days of passage. And my argument on, against Oklahoma for acting like, oh, that's not enough time, which everybody always says. The fact is you can look anywhere you want and be like, okay, let's just do it like they're doing it. That's pretty good. How's that working out over there? They've been doing this for like 2-3 years over here, working great. They've been doing this like for 10 years over here, working pretty good. So, I don't know. I mean, most of these laboratories of democracy basically piecemeal together their own thing out of what they like from other states. It seems like they could have already been working on that. I mean, especially the people that put 788 down have been. They pretty much have a nice little package put together. We already heard them talk about that. So it's just a matter of getting the legislator on board. And you know how that's going to be with all the Republicans. It's not going to be easy. So this is the last piece I got on this. And just a little bit more to go with. A little quote from Mary Fallon, and this is the last story I've seen on it. So Samantha Vincent from Tulsa World. Despite approving emergency rules from the Board of Health last week regulating state question 788, Governor Mary Fallon said the board should rescind its adoption of the last-minute amendments that Attorney General Mike Hunter found were improper. Then why did you sign that shit? Hunter said Wednesday in a letter to the interim health commissioner, Tom Bates, that the board overstepped its authority when it approved the 2 amendments. Now, I think all of this is just fallout from, all this stuff over here. Like, as this stuff happened, basically it was like dominoes instantly, like, oh, you know what, they were right. And people were calling in to the office of the AG, people were calling into Mary Fallon's office, people were calling into the health board, people were calling into everywhere. People were just calling. They were calling everywhere that you could call that was part of the Oklahoma government, and they were telling them that they weren't very happy about this shit. We had doctors calling and lawyers and politicians and citizens and medical marijuana patients. Everybody was calling, and it was pretty fun. Oklahoma's pretty cool when something has to happen. They get active, and I covered this for a while, and they, you know, all the way back to when they went to the Capitol building and caused ruckus there. So anyway, the two amendments was the ban on smokable sales and a mandate that a pharmacist be at each medical marijuana dispensary during business hours. He recommended that the Board of Health convene a special meeting to amend the rules, which the board president Tim Starkey, one of 5 members who voted in favor of the ban, announced will take place, quote, as soon as possible. And I will bring you an update on that. Hopefully that video won't be an hour long like all these other ones. Phelan issued a statement Wednesday asking the board to rescind the amendments because she thinks that the public didn't have enough time to express their concerns about them. The inclusion in the emergency rules, which Phelan approved on July 11th, drew widespread bipartisan outrage and has increased calls for a special legislative session. Can we just get this special legislative session? What's so hard about that, man? Or does everybody like super like want to take summer vacation like right now? They can't wait any longer. Like, come on, man. Do the special session. I know what they're afraid it's going to take too long, and then they're just still not going to get it hammered out. I understand. That's how it is when, you know, when you try to leave it up to the legislator to write the rules for your medical marijuana laws. Here's an idea. If the next state that tries to do a ballot initiative, why don't you just write all the damn rules, or just say, you know what, we're gonna do an exact duplicate of Colorado's medical marijuana laws. I mean, especially if your state's population kind of is the same looking as Colorado's. I'm talking to you, everybody that still don't have medical marijuana laws on the books. Anyway, State Question 788, which legalizes cultivation, processing, distribution, and prescribing of medical marijuana, was approved by state voters on June 26th. So that's pretty interesting that the cultivation's legalized. I'm going to look into the law, and I'm going to do a report on exactly what this law says. 788, SQ788 will become law July 26th. The state health department has asserted that it is on track to begin accepting license applications by August 25th. Quote, State Question 788 was written with a 30-day implementation deadline, Phelan said in her statement. It is unfortunate there was not more consideration given by proponents of SQ788 as to how challenging it is to place such a quick turnaround on very complicated subject. However, the state will carry out the responsibility of administering this law. Thank you very much. The Department of Health allowed the public to make comments online about the proposed draft of the emergency rules for implementation through July 3rd. The board did not allow comments from spectators during its July 10th meeting. Quote, my office has received calls and emails since last week's board action, with most addressing these two amendments, Phelan said. My legal staff and I are analyzing other points made in the Attorney General's legal letter to see what other action might be necessary. Man, I mean, it sounds to me like they're saying all these nice things to the public, but yet when you look at what's actually going on paper, really nothing's changed. Until we see this convening of the health department people to hopefully rescind those rules right off the bat, and then, you know, maybe put forward something basic that makes it so like, okay, we're going to let dispensaries be there. And then, I mean, these rules are not that hard to do, guys. You're going to have certain concerns. I know you are, because you're a right-wing state. You're Oklahoma. You're going to be like, okay, we want the medibles. We can't make them look like gummy bears and, you know, Reese's peanut butter cups. Furthermore, no fancy advertising. Everything has to come in foil wrap. Everything has to be tested at the lab. We know what the rules are, man. We've been doing this shit in medical marijuana states for a long time. All right? You know, like, this is not new anywhere. The only place that's new is is in your imagination, because even without regulations and all that stuff, places where the medical marijuana exists everywhere. People use it everywhere, and the rules are pretty much the same whether you have to go to a dispensary or some, you know, dude's house over in a town over. You go in there and he's going to have a bunch of jars of different kinds of weed and different kinds of medibles and different kinds of extracts and tinctures and shit. And that's the way it's always been. A dispensary is just a glorified, you know, place where you used to go buy weed that's regulated. All the products are safe because of the regulations, and we know what the regulations are. So it's not that hard, Mary. It is not. It's just not. You can basically just take the smallest, you know, I'm sure you can find some regulations that aren't that big. Michigan's is pretty big. It's like 70 or 80 pages. You can find something that's in the 20-page range. Look at it. Decide what you want, what you don't want. Just come on. And I mean, what is this? What is it so hard for the government to do their job? I am so sick of that. Like, every time the government is tasked with doing something, they have a deadline. When have they ever actually got that shit done on time? And when has it ever really came to, like, sensible things that they actually accomplished? Can anybody really name anything like that ever happened? I sure can't. I don't trust the government to do a damn thing. We're doing things just fine without you. But if you want the regulations, just write them damn down and get it done. All right, enough of that rant. So Starkey announced that he has already notified Bates and his staff to, quote, make sure the appropriate modifications are made as outlined by the Attorney General prior to the special meeting. When asked why Phelan had approved the rules as written, right, why did she do that in the first place? Michael McNutt, I mean, here's why, and this is just my opinion and my theory. Call me a conspiracy theory guy if you want, which so far all of this shit sounds like a pretty wild conspiracy theory, don't it? But it's actually happening, ain't it? So fucking take it with a grain of salt. But I think that she was in on this whole pharmacist thing. Like, that goes all the way to her, in my opinion, in my theory. She knows somebody that wanted to get that done, and she's like, oh yeah, I could get that done. All the way down the line. I mean, there's people that connected to her, and there's people in the health department. This is like something went on behind the scenes, and I want to know more about what it was and who's involved and how high does this go. And because it's just about marijuana, of course, no one's going to give a shit. This ain't going to make the fucking headlines on CNN or Fox or MSNBC. No one really is going to care about this. At the most, they're going to care because there's this crazy story about some lady making up fake emails and shit. That's it. That's the only thing that people are going to see, and they're going to walk away with that. And people are going to get away with this corrupt bullshit that we're seeing happening. So anyway, Michael McNutt, the spokesman for Mary Phelan, said she wanted to ensure that a proper regulatory framework existed in time to meet the deadlines written in the state question. He also emphasized that the rules are not permanent and that the governor expected changes to occur in the future. That doesn't explain a damn thing, my friend. That was like really good political, like, distraction kind of comment. That didn't explain nothing about why you would put an emergency rule forward that would ban smokable products when people are allowed to grow weed. Why wouldn't you be allowed to sell smokable products again? And then the other one, why would you want a pharmacist sitting around a dispensary all day? It doesn't make sense. Quote, once the process starts on July 26th, then Oklahoma is that much closer to having marijuana products for medical use available to citizens pending the delays which could be caused by the lawsuits that have been filed, McNutt said. Well, here's a solution to that problem. If those emergency rules got taken the fuck out, like everybody hopes they are, and Mary Phelan called for them to get, then we can move forward without having to worry about the lawsuits. They'll get dismissed. That's what the lady said that's in charge of one of those lawsuits. She just said it. Anyway, quote, best estimates are that medical marijuana products will be available this fall. The governor is aiming to fulfill the 2 basic requirements from voters who approved SQ788, making medical marijuana available for use to Oklahoma residents who need the medical relief, and to accomplish that as quickly as possible. I definitely doubt it. I doubt it. That sounds a little early. Come on, it's already halfway through summer. It's already almost August, man. Like, we're over the hump here on July. So that was Samantha Vincent. She writes about marijuana in Oklahoma, and that's a pretty controversial topic, apparently, because it's not even legal for medical purposes yet. Yet, you know, we have a intellectual consensus on this medical marijuana issue, and it's that it is what it is. And when we see this obstruction and we see this shady, corrupt bullshit happening, there is absolutely no way that you can just sit by and let these people get away with this shit. Whoever's involved in this shady business, they need to, they need to answer to this in front of a judge. Come on, man. I mean, it's as simple as this. We're sitting here for the last 80 years getting arrested for marijuana. And when we get arrested for marijuana, everybody knows that marijuana is not that big of a deal and no one should get arrested for it. But when that happens, which is every time a cop pulls you over and they find you with any marijuana at all, they can arrest you, and they usually do. When that happens, and everybody's like, oh, that's not that big of a deal, why the arrest? And the cop will just simply say, well, you broke the law. You know, and when you break the law, you got to pay the price. You do the crime, and you have to do the time. Unfortunately, there ain't a whole lot of crime for corruption and shady bullshit and Open Meeting Acts violations and shit. It's not even a misdemeanor, I don't think, in Oklahoma. And your fine is such a slap on the hand, it's almost insignificant. Don't even mention it. And you can only spend up to a year in jail. And no one's ever spent no time in jail for that. But with marijuana, if they want to, and they usually do, they will make sure you spend every inch of whatever time they give you for whatever charge they put you in. Therefore, they let murderers out early to keep smugglers in prison. They let bank robbers go in 5 years. Whereas a marijuana smuggler or a large-scale marijuana grower that grew illegally might be sitting there for 10 or 20 years. And they're not getting out early. Not on federal time. So this is just, when you see this and you've been in the fight, you don't want to see anybody get let off with just a slap on the wrist on this. You understand my reasoning. I'm not just vindictive against people. And I don't have any personal beef with Mary Phelan, except that she is an obstructionist when it comes to the medical marijuana. Ballot initiative originally, SQ788, which the people voted for now, and it's been passed in landslide fashion. Please leave it alone. Please just do your damn job and just leave it to the people that know what's going on. All right. That's another thing about obstructionists. They don't have any idea. In their opinion, marijuana can never be medicine. It just can't be. Especially when you crush up a flower, put it in a paper, and light it with a lighter. To them, that is anything but medicine. All right, y'all. I'm gone. I probably will have another update on this story, it looks like, because they're not going to stop being crazy.